Oh, it actually tells you.
Yep, it's happening. Okay, we are live in Facebook, just so you know. Okay, and I'm going to open the webinar to give people time to join in this way. And we'll probably get started like a couple, maybe like 1 or 2 minutes after 7. Welcome everybody. As you're logging in, we're going to give folks a couple more minutes. So we'll start in, how about we'll say 1 minute. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to our evening with Jennifer Hattersberger and Troy Campbell. I'm going to start off our evening tonight by reading a land acknowledgement that Wenatchee River Institute put together with the Piscosa people, the indigenous peoples of this place. So the land Wenatchee River Institute sits on is the ancestral homelands of the Shimpishquashu, Piscosa, or Wenatchee people. The Shimpishquashu, meaning people in between, had villages positioned along the Wenatchee River. Their ancestral homeland extends from the Cascade Ridge throughout what is now known as the Wenatchee and Okanagan Valleys. The culture and economy of the Piscosa people centered on fishing. They also gathered roots and berries, basket-making materials, and medicines. And they also hunted game. The Piscosa are named within the Yakima Treaty of 1855. Language to establish the Wenatchee Reservation was never followed through, even with the needed surveying completed. Many Piscosa now live on the Colville Reservation, 150 miles northeast of Leavenworth. The Piscosa people are still alive today. They continue to practice their culture within their homelands and are working to get land back. The Piscosa people are the original stewards of this land. We offer this land acknowledgement as the first step to amplifying Indigenous voices and recognizing the harm done to them as a people. We encourage all of you to learn about the Indigenous peoples of the place that you now call home. So welcome everyone. My name is Rachel Bishop and I'm the Community Programs Manager for Wenatchee River Institute. We are a nonprofit environmental learning center located in Leavenworth, and our mission is to connect people, communities, and the natural world. And we connect people to the natural world through 2 types of programming, youth programs and community programs. And with our youth programs right now, we are virtually working with the after-school program of the Wenatchee School District. We are also providing field days to the schools in Leavenworth and Cashmere. And we are also ramping up for our summer camps, which are very, very full and have long, long wait lists. But we're excited to be working with students in person. And for our community programs, this is actually our final virtual program for the summer. And I'm really looking forward to working with people in person outside. And just to name a few programs we have coming up, we're starting some guided nature walks, learning about the natural and cultural history of Leavenworth. We have a composting 101 class, a tracking certification class. It's over a weekend, introduction to beekeeping, and we also have a hapazome, which is a natural dyeing class coming up. And there are many more classes on our calendar, so the best way to find out about programs that are happening at Wenatchee River Institute is to go to our website, wenatcheeriverinstitute.org, check out our calendar, or you can follow us on our Instagram and Facebook, and you can also sign up for our e-newsletter. And those are the best ways to find out about upcoming programs and if something sounds exciting to you. So tonight we are here in the Zoom webinar, and we're also on Facebook Live. So if you have questions at any time, if you're watching through Facebook, you can type your question into the comments. And if you're watching via Zoom webinar, you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen or the chat feature. And we are going to have two speakers tonight. Like I said at the beginning, we have Jennifer Hattersberger and Troy Campbell. So we'll take some questions for Jennifer after she's done speaking, and questions for Troy after he's done speaking, and questions for both of them at the very end. So type your questions whenever you have them. I'll make sure to read them out for our speakers to answer them. So first, I am going to introduce Jennifer. So Jennifer has a Bachelor's of Science in Zoology from the University of Washington and a Master's in Botany from Oregon State University, and a certificate in Wetland Science and Management from UW. She has over 20 years of work experience in natural resources management, and Jennifer currently teaches biology and botany classes at Wenatchee Valley College, and has her own business called Wenatchee Valley Planning. So thank you, Jennifer, for being here tonight, and we'll pass it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to bring up a presentation. And some of you may have heard me give this presentation last December, but what I'm going to be talking about is a river recreation survey that was done for Wenatchee River and Icicle Creek near Leavenworth. So we collected this data last summer, 2020. And I was working on a contract for Chelan County Natural Resources Department. So if you want to get a copy of the full report, there is the hyperlink of where it's available. It's on the Chelan County website, and I'll also have that up on the last slide today as well. So why did we do this study? There were some landowners that live next to those sections of river that were concerned about the river recreation use in the area. And as many of you, if you live here, probably seen, we've had increased recreational activity over the last 10 years or so. I'm not sure that's unique only to this area. I think we've probably seen some increases in river tubing and other river recreation, probably nationwide. And then there's also been some parking issues and conflicts on the county road and in county right of way. So some stakeholders got together and provided some funding to the county to initiate this study. And those funders were City of Leavenworth, Chelan County, Dave Johnson with Leavenworth Outdoor Center, Gruber, who's a landowner adjacent to the river, and also the Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce. So to initiate this study, we got a group of planning committee members together, and they are listed here, but it included staff from Chelan County, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Gruber, who is a landowner on Icicle Creek. There was also a couple of other landowners that came to some of our meetings. Dave Johnson with Tube Leavenworth, Jesse Boyd was representing the, he's on the Chamber of Commerce Board, Troy Campbell, who you'll hear from tonight with Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce, Zeke Reister, City of Leavenworth, and then myself. So we had a lot of stakeholder meetings to determine the methods for this study, and then also some of the follow-up. They reviewed the draft report, so there's a lot of input from these group members. So the goals of this report were to characterize the existing river recreation use, to describe the infrastructure and bank conditions at all of the river access sites within the study area, and I'll show a map of the study area in a minute. And then to actually get some estimates of the number of river users. And then we did a survey to identify any issues associated with river use. So I'll talk about all of these things. Although I do want to point out on this slide that the scope of this project was not to solve any and all of the issues. Sort of the first step was just to identify what issues might exist. And so that was the work we did last summer, and that's what I'm going to talk about here. And then we're kind of phasing in some actions to address some of the issues that we learned about. And Troy will talk to you about one thing that's going to happen this summer, and some other things may happen in future years, but we're just embarking on this process. So this is a aerial photo, and hopefully, can you see my pointer, Rachel, when I use that? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So what you see at the top, this is the Wenatchee River, and then flowing under Icicle Road around the golf course, and then coming through. This is downtown Leavenworth here. And these 3 yellow dots, those are places where people launch boats onto the Wenatchee River. And then this is Icicle Creek. So this is the Leavenworth Fish Hatchery. So Icicle Creek flows under East Leavenworth Road and then continues downstream to the confluence with the Wenatchee River near the golf course. So these 1, 2, 3, 4 blue dots show where people launch onto Icicle Creek, or where there's river access on Icicle Creek. And then these 2 orange dots are on the Wenatchee main stem, and they show the main takeout, at least for low water use, for anyone who's launching on the Wenatchee or Icicle Creek. So in the report, what I did was, for each of these sites, I characterized the existing conditions, the infrastructure, any bank erosion at each of these sites. And I'm going to run through some of that pretty quickly, but I just want to let you know it's available in more detail in the report. So these are hydrographs of the river. So this is showing the months and then the flows on the Wenatchee River. So you can see the highest flows on the Wenatchee are right about now in May and June. And then the water levels start to drop through the summer with lows in September. And I put these 2 colors because we really have 2 different recreation seasons on the Wenatchee River. In blue, you have people out boating now that are primarily whitewater boaters. I'm going to call it the high water boating season. And then we have sort of this lower water season. So sometime in July, the water levels drop and people start to launch in more like tubes and SUPs, other types of watercraft. So we have a high and low water season on the Wenatchee River. And then on Icicle Creek, at least for the portion within the study area, the use is primarily during the month of July. And you can see that is on the following hydrograph. Once you get into August and September, the water levels are low enough that you're kind of dragging bottom across the river cobbles. And also the fish hatchery closes their access gate, so there's not great parking for accessing the river August and beyond. So I'm going to run pretty quickly through what some of the site conditions look like at these different sites. This is the Icicle Road Bridge launch site on the Wenatchee River. It's owned by City of Leavenworth. They have their water treatment plant back behind those trees there. So, and then it's also next to the road, there's a portion of right-of-way that's owned by Chelan County. So this site does not have any permanent garbage facilities, but you can see here, this is Leavenworth Outdoor Center. They launch commercial users from this site, and they do provide garbage while they're there at the site during the day. And then they also pay for these porta potties because there are no permanent bathroom facilities at this site. You can see that there is parking. I did some counts. Somehow the public manages to fit about 25 cars in this small area. And there is quite a bit of bank erosion. So I wanted to go through, that's the type of information that the report has on every site. One of the things at this site, for those of you that know this launch site, it's on kind of a double curve. There's curves coming into this access site and out of. And what happens because of the limited parking here, people park in the right of way. And one day this summer, I counted over 50 cars that extended over a quarter mile from the bridge in both directions. And one of the things that happens when people park in this right of way is, you know, they're parking here to walk down and launch at this site, but there's no right of way to walk in. And so then they're walking, you can see it here, they're walking right in the road, the travel lanes on this area where there's a double curve. So this is kind of one of the issues at this site that you'll see when we do the survey. These are two other sites where people launch on the Wenatchee River. This is at the end of Wilson Street. This is private land. There's about an acre there. There is garbage and a porta potty, and a couple of commercial companies drop off users here, and they come down the riverbank on two paths, really. There's some erosion on the paths, but you can see there's vegetation in other areas. This is one of the beaches at Enchantment Park, owned by City of Leavenworth, and there are some commercial boating companies that launch here at high water. This photo is taken obviously during low water conditions. At high water, the water's up near these shrubs, and they're launching primarily whitewater rafts from this location. This is another site at Enchantment Park that used to be used for commercial access, but there's been a lot of bank erosion, not necessarily because of the commercial access, just because it's on the outside bend of the river. But I don't think this site is really used much for commercial access anymore. This is one of the two takeout sites on the Wenatchee River. This is the Steelhead boat launch owned by City of Leavenworth. So if those of you that know the S-curves off of East Leavenworth Road, that's how you get down here. It's a really large parking area. I've never really seen it at full capacity. There are signboards, there's a porta potty, there's one garbage, and then there's actually a concrete boat ramp. And then this is an image of the beach. And you can see that a lot of the shoreline is been protected with rock. There's actually some rock here too, you just can't see it, it's overgrown. This is the other takeout site on the Wenatchee River. I'm just calling it above Barm Beach, but this is City of Leavenworth property. There are commercial users that take out here. They actually have tried to make the parking more efficient by putting chalk lines out to help people figure out where to park. They do provide garbage and recycle when they are there on site, and they have funded porta potties at this location. This is what the beach looks like. You'll notice these stop danger signs to warn people to get out here. There is a class 3 rapid boulder bend just a little bit beyond this takeout site. So let's look at some pictures of just the Icicle launch sites. This is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Fish Hatchery. There's a gravel boat ramp. There's lots of parking. And in fact, in this past year, they put out rope and rocks and just some improvements that help people know where to park and improve the flow of traffic there. And this site can park a lot of cars. I think I have the exact estimate in the report, but I want to say probably over 100 cars or something can park there. And this is what the beach access looks like. They do have porta potties and garbage and signboards at this location as well. This is the former Old Bridge Road. It's the end of a county road. So those of you that know the fish hatchery site, and there's kind of this spur road that goes off. Like if you didn't go into the fish hatchery, you can take this little spur road. This is used by Leavenworth Outdoor Center to launch commercially. There's quite a bit of bank erosion, and they do have porta potties and garbage up here. They rent a barn facility on private land to store some of their equipment. And so the garbage is up there, just a short walk down from where they launch river users. Some people launch at the East Leavenworth Road Bridge. And so this is just pictures. This is East Leavenworth Road. And this is what it looks like down by the river. You can see an old bridge abutment. And some people are getting in here, but you can see the limited road right away here. There's not really any parking here. I think this launch mostly gets used after the fish hatchery closes at the end of July. The county code actually prohibits parking within a quarter mile of this bridge, although the signs often get taken down. So we've been talking to the county about getting those signs put back up there, because as you can see, it's not a great place to park. It's not very safe for traffic. This is a river access off of East Leavenworth Road. It's owned by Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. So this is the parking area, and then there's just a little trail down to the river edge. There's no garbage, there's no bathrooms, just access to the river. You can see these people enjoying just hanging out there. And then at the end of Shore Street, this is just sort of the end of county right-of-way. There is also access to the river. A lot of people use this site just as a local swimming hole. And most of the river traffic is passing through, although some people do launch here to go downstream. This site has no bathrooms, no garbage. And as you can see, a lot of the parking is just on the side of the road, possibly encroaching onto people's lawns. So part of this study was to characterize infrastructure, but the other part was to actually get counts of river users. So I was on the banks of Icicle Creek for 4 days. 2 Saturdays, you can see there was just under 1,200 river users. Midweek, we were just under 400 river users. I did count whether they were commercial or private boaters, although I'm not sure this percentage is super accurate because the commercial launch was not happening for the full 7 hours that I was out there counting. So a couple things to note about these counts. They may have been impacted by COVID. We may have seen fewer river users last summer. I did compare the revenue for sales tax last summer compared to previous years, and it was a little bit lower. So if we were to repeat these counts in the future, we may see slightly higher numbers, although even 1,150, 1,200 people is still a lot of users on the river. And these are the river survey counts on the Wenatchee River. So on Saturday, August 8th, there was 1,600 river users. I actually think there was a similar number on this day as well, but I sat at the Icicle Road Bridge launch, thought I could see the end of Wilson Street launch with binoculars, and I couldn't quite count it. And so if you were to add, on this day, there was 400 boaters that launched from the end of Wilson Street. So if you were to add that to this, they'd be pretty close numbers. So roughly 1,600 river users on the Wenatchee on a typical August Saturday. And again, you can see here the breakdown between commercial and private users. And then midweek, we see a little bit different use, just over 600 on a Tuesday, but closer to 1,000 on a Friday. So you could use these counts to extrapolate total number of users per season. This is a graph of just one day on Icicle Creek. I could make these graphs for every day that I counted river users, but let me just tell you that they would look very similar, because what you see is a bell curve in terms of the number of people out over these times of day. So you see the peak use between about noon and 3, And so between 1 and 2 o'clock, there was about 300 users during that 1 hour window. So one of the things that, you know, if people want to get out on the river and not have the crowds there, you could always think about earlier in the morning or later in the day. It's light till 9. So anyway, I did see this pattern on all the days that I counted. I also recorded the type of watercraft that people were in. The majority of the private boaters are tubes, but you can see there's also stand-up paddle boards and other users out there. And with the commercial boats, also the majority of tubes, but some rafts. Osprey had some rafts out on both Icicle and the Wenatchee, and also some SUPs and inflatable kayaks. These are just pie charts that show whether or not people had personal flotation devices, life jackets. And what you can see here is that we see a little bit more life jacket use with the commercial users compared to the private river users. And when I was out there counting, I think that it's required for the commercial users to have a life jacket when they're in the inflatable kayak. And so that's one of the reasons that you see the higher life jacket use with this group. So part of the project was also to survey the community of issues. So we sent a postcard to over 2,000 residents. It had a SurveyMonkey link. We had almost 800 responses, which for those of you that have ever done a survey before, if you're getting close to a 50% response, it's pretty good. 90% of the responses were local. So that's good because that's who we wanted to hear from. And about 92% of the people who responded had some level of concern about river recreation use in the study area. So these are just a couple slides on the demographics of who responded to the survey. Like 92% of the people said, yes, they also recreate on the river. So that's good. And then how do you recreate on the river? We see swimming, kayaking, SUPs, tubing. So the people responding to this survey are also river users. They're fishermen, all sorts of river use for who replied to the survey. We asked if they had concerns about the launch and takeout sites, and the most commonly cited concerns were garbage and public behavior for number 1 and 2. And then what was really interesting is that the third most commonly listed concern was different at the different launch and takeout sites. So what we saw at the Wenatchee River launch sites, the number 3 most common concern for Icicle Road Bridge was parking. I showed you those pictures of how congested it gets on Icicle Road. This one, end of Wilson Street, I don't know why people are concerned about bathrooms. It's private land. There is a porta potty there, so there is a bathroom. Maybe people just didn't know that. And at Enchantment Park, the number 3 concern was bank erosion, and there definitely is some bank erosion at the park. For the Icicle River sites, the number 3 concern for the fish hatchery was bathrooms. And that was the same concern for that end of the county spur road, although there are bathrooms at both of those sites. So I don't know why that came up as the number 3 concern, but at East Leavenworth Road Bridge, the number 3 concern was parking. And at Shore Street, the number 3 concern was parking. And then at the Wenatchee River takeout site, the number 3 concern for the East Leavenworth Road boat ramp was bathrooms. There is one porta potty there, but I don't know how fresh that is after the number of users taking out. So maybe that's why that got brought up. And at the Barm Beach site, parking was listed as the number 3 concern. And any of you that have been there on a weekend in the summer know that it does get quite crowded. And in fact, I don't even think I'm ever going to get a parking site there in the summer. I usually go to the other side of the river, to the East Leavenworth Road site. We also asked people to rank their concern. So those first questions were, what are your concerns with the launch and takeout sites? But then we asked, well, what are your concerns while people are on the river? And interestingly, the #1 concern was environmental impacts. Number 2 and 3 were garbage and public behavior. So if you notice, those were also the top 2 concerns at the launch and takeout sites. And then the 3 that ranked last were safety, noise, and trespassing. So in the end, this report throws out there some management ideas. One thing that we could do is look at infrastructure improvements at some of the launch and takeout sites. So meaning we could address bank erosion, we could add more garbage, we could add permanent bathroom facilities, we could clean the toilets more, the porta potties, we could add more porta potties. So all of these types of things to address some of these concerns. Another thing that came up was there could be some enforcement of existing laws like public inebriation or parking tickets, things like that. We could look at a river use permit system where the permit fees were used to generate funds for possibly enforcement or education and outreach. So education and outreach, this is going to be the segue for Troy coming in here. That is one thing we are going to implement this summer. Not me, not we, Troy. I guess our community. And we also could consider some seasonal closures or closures at certain locations or closures of certain user types. Some of these things would require some level of funding, like say we wanted to increase enforcement, but we didn't do a permit system. Well, then where does the money come from? So these are all things just to think about in the future. What we're doing for this year may not be the only thing that could be implemented over the long run. But yeah, that's kind of where we landed at the end of the study I did this summer. And I don't know if you have any questions, Rachel?
Yeah, there are 2 questions. So was there a look at how other mountain/river towns deal with similar problems during your survey or study?
Yeah, GRU was really good at researching that and sharing that information with all of us. And I think if we want to move deeper into, more management actions, it might be good to summarize, I could see like a matrix or something where you looked at, these towns did these things and here's how they paid for them. And that might help us determine some of the next steps.
Yeah, because I imagine we're not the only ones dealing with this. Okay, and the other question was, what do, I guess, so LOC was involved in this. Were there other companies involved or other companies sort of on board with fixing or helping to manage the problem?
I did reach out to several commercial companies at the beginning of the survey just to get an understanding of, do you run tubing? How many boaters are you launching per year? So some of that information is at the beginning of the report, and they know that we were preparing this report. But not everybody has the time to dedicate to the number of stakeholder meetings that we had involved for this last year. So I think those companies know that this has happened. And I think if we start to move forward with more management actions, that will be a really important stakeholder group to involve in those next steps.
Cool. And then I have one for you. I mean, what sparked the beginning of this survey?
Well, I think there was some landowners that were approaching both the city and the county. And then, like I said, there are some of these activities are happening on county land, whether it's parking or river access. And so I think kind of the first step of addressing any issue is just making sure you've characterized it. And one of the things we've talked about as a group is with this system, because we have different launch and takeout sites, any action that you implement at one site is going to have ramifications on those other sites. Like We know already that when the hatchery closes their parking at the end of July is when we see more parking pressure at the Icicle Road Bridge site and people parking near East Leavenworth Road Bridge. So we kind of need to characterize the whole use in order to take the next step to talk about management actions.
Great. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for explaining that survey. Thank you for doing it and sharing it with us, the results. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Troy Campbell, for his part of tonight. So Troy Campbell has logged over 25 years of experience in travel and tourism, event production, marketing, urban planning, government affairs, and nonprofit management. He began his career at Mount Rainier National Park, where he worked as a park ranger, followed by a job with the Forest Service before transitioning to the travel and tourism industry. For over a decade, Troy managed land and water tours and vacation packages in the Pacific Northwest and Alaska, expanding to river cruises in Europe, the Galapagos Islands, and other destinations around the world as product development manager for an adventure-based cuisine. Prior to returning from California to his home state and accepting the position with the Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce in 2020, Troy was the executive director for the Calistoga Chamber of Commerce for 2 years and as the executive director for San Francisco's Fisherman's Wharf Community Benefit District before that from 2010 to 2018. Over the course of his career, Troy has also served on the boards of other nonprofits where he assisted with sponsorship, marketing, website creation, fundraising, and board development. Most recently, 2014 to 2018, he served as president of the board of directors for the International Ocean Film Festival in San Francisco. So thank you, Troy. It's a pleasure to have you here, and we'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you. And I know everyone's thinking, how could he have that much experience and look that young? And the secret is the filter on Zoom. So now you know. But you saw that great presentation from Jennifer, and you saw that bullet that said education and outreach. And being on that committee, that's where I knew that the Chamber of Commerce could help. We can give tons of opinions about those other bullets and help facilitate those, but this was one where we could really roll up our sleeves and make a difference this year. This program, this Recreation Ambassador Program, was born on February 27th, was when we had the idea to hatch this. And everybody has been really amazing in rolling up their sleeves and helping us get this done because this was a lot to undertake, but I think it was a really good program and made very possible. One of the ideas that really helped spawn this was this study. Seeing what Jennifer presented, seeing where the needs were and the times. Basically, she laid out a schedule of a volunteer program, and maybe indirectly and not knowing it, but did that. I saw that, and then she fine-tuned that. We were able to really put together where the needs would be and where we could fill those. And so the objective of this program is to assist in welcoming. To assist in providing a welcoming, informative, clean, and safe environment for residents and the visitors of Leavenworth area, and provide a consistent message to our most popular recreational locations during the peak months. And so we had identified the locations for this program would be the U.S. Fish and Wildlife location, the East Leavenworth Road boat launch, the Barn Beach takeout, and Icicle Road Bridge. I'm also going to note that part of this program will also be sending a volunteer to 8 Mile Trailhead and Stewart Lake Trailhead, and are working with the Forest Service. So this encompasses more of the river, but I'll just focus on the river tonight. But with this program, kind of one of the big ideas, because we had such a great windfall from the last year's STR intake, we had a little bit more money to put towards this program than we normally would have had. So this is fully funded by the Chamber of Commerce. This program, excuse me, frog in my throat. And the duties of the Recreation Ambassador will be guest services, doing patrols where they would deploy to the assigned area and act as a deterrent to unwanted activity, as well as interact with residents and visitors, focus on compliance with neighborhood city regulations, offer crowd control, parking assistance, and to be quite blunt, narc on people that are breaking the law, because we will be having them, our recreation ambassadors, have relationships with the Sheriff's Department and Pacific Security that provide security for the city. But the real crux of this program that I think that really kind of made it a little different than others is that it's actually a service grant. So for the organizations, for the volunteers that we will have, they're being supplied by other nonprofits. So nonprofits could apply to this program and they basically have to say, yes, Chamber of Commerce, we will provide you with 96 hours of vacation, 96 volunteer hours each weekend. We will do patrols, we will take some data and do some reporting at the end. And we will also attend the training hosted at Wenatchee River Institute on June 9th. And if they can come up with all of those things, they can receive a service grant of $2,500 per weekend for this, for doing this. So this becomes not only a way to get volunteers to help us with our resource, but also is a mechanism for nonprofits in our area to raise funds. It allows us to repurpose the LTAC, the lodging tax funds, and take them that we get and then repurpose them to these nonprofits to provide a service. And then they can in turn take that money and respend it back into Chelan County. The timeline for this was they had to have their applications in by April 30th. And on May 5th, we announced who the recipients of the grant service program are. And covering 3 weekends will be the Chelan County Mountain Rescue. Covering 2 weekends will be Leavenworth Mountain Association. Also covering 2 weekends is the Chelan County Fire Number 3. So those 3 organizations are covering 7 of the 9 weekends that we wanted to fill. We actually wanted 10, but that was the 3rd and 4th of July, and we knew going into it we weren't going to get anybody, but we hoped. But we have 7 of the 9 with those 2 organizations, and the other 2 weekends are filled by a really nice partnership. One group is the combination of Cascade Medical Center along with Upper Valley Historical Society. And the other group, the other weekend is being held by the NTIAT Chamber of Commerce, who combined with the Columbia Breaks Fire Interpretive Center. NTIAT doesn't get any LTAC funds, so this is a way that they can. But they are combining on to service one of those weekends. These 4 organizations, because we had way more interest in this program than I anticipated, we actually created a backup program. So not only do we have those 3 organizations that I listed off having 7 of the 9 weekends, but these other 4 organizations that each have 2 are also backing up those other organizations. So we should always have recreation ambassadors for the river, starting in July and ending the 3rd and 4th of September. Not only are we investing in the ambassador program and the grant awards, but we're putting a lot of money into the infrastructure of this program because we would like it to see perpetuate in years to come. And maybe it has to change, and maybe it's a little different from year to year as we refine it and make it better. But we'd like to see it year after year. And one of the things that we're doing is investing this year in the operational equipment and program costs. So it's not just volunteers unleashed at the river. They will have uniforms, they will have radios, they will have extra garbage bags to hand out to people. They will have little gifts for kids if they make their parents pick up all our litter, you know, really ways to interact with people and start conversations. And hey, I see you got a lot of garbage. We have some extra bags. Why don't you take these? Great. So, and then, you know, being out there every weekend, the training, what it will do is provide sort of that consistency. So even though we may have different groups out at Barn Beach Takeout from weekend to weekend, they've all received the same training and they've all received the same packet on Fridays with the information that they need. So a consistent message will be given throughout the summer, a consistent look in who's there. And for the first time, I think ever, I'm not sure because I'm kind of the newbie, but for the first time ever, I think we're going to have a presence of people out there at our peak times helping manage what's going on out there and being eyes and ears and being able to report back. Because this, like I said at the beginning, this is just one bullet of many solutions that need to happen. And in any way we can use these ambassadors to help us achieve those other bullets is something that we're looking at doing as well. So that in a nutshell is the Recreation Ambassador Program. And I can call it right then and ask for questions if you like. Back to Rachel.
Great, thank you, Troy. And a reminder, folks, if you're in the webinar, you can type questions in the Q&A and chat. And if you're watching via Facebook, you can type your questions into the comments. But there are a few questions for you, Troy. Similar question to what was asked of Jennifer about other commercial businesses taking folks out onto the river. Are they involved in this recreation ambassador thing? Like, are their employees being trained, or is there an idea to have their employees trained to give the same messaging that the ambassadors will be giving to our visitors using the river?
We'd be happy to share all that information that we get from the training and share that with those companies that are out there for their use. So there is a consistency, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So another question, will the river ambassadors be able to educate users that drinking alcohol is prohibited on the river, and will there be law enforcement present?
So the law enforcement, my suggestions have been to the county and to the city is target your law enforcement when you know that, at the afternoon when people are coming out of that takeout, that's when you stop by and say hi to everybody. There's also, I've done rodent programs, ambassador programs in the city of San Francisco. And one of the tactics we do is sort of, I call it polite compliance patrol. And what you do is you walk around and you say to people like, hey, I noticed you guys are drinking. It's actually against the law. And I know the sheriff has been waiting at the takeout. So just a heads up. That sometimes can deter people. And sometimes it can make them just be a little bit more cautious and a little bit more discreet. And sometimes that's a win. But yeah, that would be part of their training. And we're actually having the sheriff attend the training to assist with that, and also some de-escalation on how to calm people down and not to inflame a situation if they get in that kind of, but also some tactics they can use, to get people to, to follow the rules, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there is a question that's about parking specifically, and I know you said, there's many bullets to tackle this very large problem, and the chamber is going after the education and outreach. So will parking education be a part of the education and outreach that the ambassadors are doing? For example, the question is about the Lake Stewart trailhead and parking on Icicle Road by the bridge.
We hope so, but here's the thing. We are asking the agencies that are in charge of those areas to feed us that information. So our information will only be as good as what we get from the county and the city for what they want us to relay, because we are not writing the scripts. So yes, the intent would be, even if we need to help, one of the things we put money aside for was help with additional signage, if there's additional porta potties needed, if there's additional service of just the existing porta potties, because I know sometimes they need twice a week versus one. And so, just maybe we have some infrastructure money for that. But even putting out cones, things like that, is something that could be something that they do. But yeah, it is really going to be as good as the information we get from the city. And we are working right now on pulling that information together on what they would like us, because each group will be assigned. Like, you're assigned to Barm Beach. Okay, great. Here's the Barm Beach packet. These are the things that you need to know about that location. These are the things that are illegal at that location. And these are some special considerations that we need you to take care of. And also at 1 o'clock, we want you to walk down the road and count every single car. So every Saturday, we know how many cars are parked here at 1 o'clock, and just add more data to what Jennifer has already compiled, and just enriches that. So, and then if there's anything specific we need to look for, if there's anything specific, and I don't know what that is right now, but that is something else we can have the ambassadors look out for. I think there was, access to private property and making sure that there's at least maybe cones put out in that area and things like that.
Yeah. Maybe neither of you, I don't know if either of you know this question, but there's a question to both of you, I think. Is parking illegal on the right of way on Icicle Road? Do either of you know?
Jennifer does.
It is not illegal to park in the right of way unless you are impeding traffic flow.
Okay. So not impeding people walking, but impeding cars driving. Okay. Interesting.
So the county does have places that they designate in code where you cannot park in the right of way. And adjacent to the East Leavenworth Road Bridge is one of them. Sleepy Hollow is another one. So it could be one future possible solution to maybe add that into county code, that you can't park in the Icicle Road right away near the bridge. But if we were going to do that, we need to have some other parking solution because people want to access the river. So one thing that we've talked about that I could see happening next summer is to encourage people to park at the East Leavenworth Road Boat Launch and then run a shuttle up to Icicle Road Bridge. We are not going to do that this summer because, you know, there's all those pilings right there at that takeout. It's not the best takeout if you don't know what you're doing on the river. So the county is actually going to remove those pilings, maybe this summer, but probably next summer. And once those pilings are removed, we'll probably try to encourage more people to park there and then shuttle to the Icicle Road Bridge launch site. And at that point, then you could limit the parking in the right of way. And this is classic example of where all of these things are interrelated and why it might take more time to implement some of these things.
Yeah, and I know there was talk by Link Transit, I think, to have shuttles to like the Enchantment parking, like trailhead. So I don't know if there's been talk with Link of shuttling folks to the take-ins and or put-ins and takeouts.
Well, I know some people are using Leavenworth Taxi for a shuttle system. And I think once you get rid of those pilings near the East Leavenworth Road launch site, I think Leavenworth Outdoor Center would consider operating a shuttle there up to the put-in for not necessarily only for their guests, but for other people that just want the drop off as well. But these are all future things that still need to get worked out, but nobody really wanted to increase the takeout there, especially for the commercial guests, until we can get rid of those pilings. So the county's actually working on funding and permitting to get those pilings out.
Cool. So Jennifer, this is a question for you. Will you be doing another count this season on the same dates that you did counts last summer?
I am not going to be out on the riverbanks counting this summer. However, I'm going to hand this question over to Troy to talk about one of the things he's considering.
Well, I don't remember.
Well, were you going to get some like counter things, or did we just?
Oh, yes.
Work?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm heating up the room here. I'm like, my face is so red. Yes, we have some counters. So they're called Traffics is the name of them, and they are battery powered. They last up to 60 days. People counters, and so we're looking at grading some spots that we could, maybe some bottlenecks that we could get some counts of people, and we would have daily counts by the hour. And yeah, and it's a data dump. So you go and you connect to the device, and it downloads it and puts it into your computer on your phone, and then you get really nice big charts that you can send right out. So it's actually what the Forest Service uses, and they're going to be using them at Stewart and 8 Mile this year. And so we have a couple extra we'd like to put at the river, but they have a limited view. So we kind of need a bottleneck spot where people are like walking to the river, or even at some of the takeout spots could be good too. So that's, we'll have that automated. And if we have that up and running and we can find the right spot, then we will have daily counts in those locations. So great data.
So if we can figure out a site where the range will cover it, then we'll be able to update that, but we're still working out those details, or Troy is working out those details.
Okay, so there's one more question as far as right now. So is there messaging being sent to tourists to sort of prepare them for these ambassadors, you know, talking to them about the way that they're engaging?
Yes, in fact, we're doing PSAs and we're redoing our website, and our website is going to have a new recreation sort of home landing page where we're putting our PSA videos and other blogs and things about, really a philosophy change for the chamber. It's not just about, hey, come here to Leavenworth. It's about, hey, come to Leavenworth, and when you do, behave. And here's what you should here's what you should know. So we have some PSAs going up, and we're actually we have already gotten our shirt, so we're going to have an actor wearing the recreation ambassador shirt in the video. So it's already out there in even though the recreation ambassador program doesn't start till July. So we're going to actually have 2 videos that we're doing in PSAs, one on the river and one on trails. And so those are being worked on right now. And then that we'll have the things that we hand out on the river. We'll tell people that, we'll have the website of leavenworth.org/recreation, and then that will have more information for them. So we're kind of pushing people back into that. Oh, you need more information? Go here. And then they're captivated by that. We're also probably going to do, we're working with Tread, and I didn't mention them before. Shame on me. The Tread app is live, and it is kind of like, if anybody knows Waze, if they've used that for their traffic for driving, and it's the one that people put in and say, oh, there's a cop, don't come this way, or horrible wreck, go around, and it gives you directions based on input that people have given, that they have input into this app. Trails kind of acts the same way. It gives you up-to-date information on trails, river put-ins, parking, those kind of things, by people putting stuff in. So we're going to have our ambassadors, especially on the river, because I don't think they get the perception up on the trails, are able to put that kind of information in. Parking's full, don't come here. Turn around, go home. But putting that information out there as well. So updating those apps, and then we'll be promoting those apps as well. Check this, look before you go, be prepared, and QR codes and all of that.
Cool. Okay. This will be the last question. I'm going to end it after this one. Okay, so will the river ambassadors continue to educate people at the hatchery when the parking is closed and the Icicle River is too low? And there's a note that, usage during that time has negative impacts on the river ecology, and people shouldn't be on the Icicle during that time, which is why that parking is closed.
Yes, we actually toggle over. I was just pulling up the schedule. Looks like U.S. Forest Service, we will probably stop servicing that location in late August, early July, and that's based on the feedback from the report, and also just the normal operations there. So when we toggle to August, the USFS will drop off, and it will just be the East Leavenworth Road, Barn Beach Takeout, and Icicle Road Bridge. After they close, we will just be servicing those 3 locations in August. And part of the message, anybody close to that area will be getting the message about salmon.
Cool.
I think, and just to throw it out there, I think it's one of those things that when people know, people don't know. I think a lot of people just don't know, and people are horrified when they find out, when I've told them. They didn't even think. So I think just arming some people with some information sometimes, so that they make the right decision. So.
Yep, education is powerful. So yes, thank you both to Jennifer and Troy for being with us tonight, and for sharing the results of the survey and the great first steps our community is taking to combat our river usage problem. I appreciate both of you putting the work into this and being here tonight, and thank you to everyone who tuned in and asked questions, and hope you all have a great rest of your night, and hope I get to see you in person soon. Thank you.